Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, where Phil lives. So they had like all the little stuffed animal and everything out. It was really cool to see that. Um, so the links to these slides are in the agenda if you'd like to follow along. Our purpose is to collaborate, so we want this to be as collaborative as possible during our meeting. And so please ask questions, share ideas. We're really looking for that. Matroba and Patricia are going to present to you today and share some of their insights into modifying and supplementing the OUR curriculum. So I think you'll really enjoy that. I have in the agenda, I have the question Padlet. If you would like to put questions in the parking lot, I can either address them after the meeting or just send an email to everybody when we're done. And I'm sure Tricia and Matroba will be happy to answer your questions as well. Make sure that you've registered for our course in Wake Learns so you can get your CEUs for us. And there's the link in there to join in the slides. And then just to review our norms, just give yourselves permission to be fully present today, to try to forget about it, all the things going on around us and everything happening, and de-stress a little bit, and please contribute and seek to understand, just not to be understood, and take care of your personal needs as they arrive. We are, Patricia and Matroba are our resident experts that are going to be presenting here today, and their emails are there, and they are open to your questions or classroom visits or anything else that you'd like to see. So I'm gonna stop presenting, and I'll let one of you present since you're going to be doing the talk, and you won't have to tell me to click a slide every time. And
Matroba, do you want me to present?
Could you do? I'm trying to link something quickly.
Yeah, I'll pull it up there,
I'm
and
so
then
sorry.
no problem.
All right, we'll turn it over to you two.
All right, let's fly over here and find the right clicker. All right, so when we were, hopefully everybody can see. Can everybody see my screen? Everybody's good, hopefully?
I can see it, yes.
Awesome. So when we were trying to meet and talk about what kind of topics to present, we talked a lot about different upcoming units and things like that. But we thought before we kind of dove into more unit specific stuff, just talking in general about modifying and supplementing some of the open up curriculum would be important to kind of touch base on. And Matroba and I met and talked about different things that we found helpful for students in both ICR and Essentials. So just going to go over some ideas. Unfortunately, there's not, a manual that says, here's the one way to modify everything. It's really dependent on kind of who your kids are and what their needs are. And then also what your goals for them are. So just talking a little bit about why we modify, the big thing is access, right? We want kids to have meaningful experiences with the curriculum. And if they can't find an entry point to be able to make sense of something, it's really hard for them to do that. The other thing that we want them to have is some independence. If we're talking about computation, we want to make sure kids can do what we're asking them to do. If we're talking about a concept, we may need to modify the numbers so that they can have some independence with what they're trying to do. And then we've got, we really want them to have that conceptual understanding. So we may have to modify the difficulty level, sometimes modify even the way things are presented, the words that are used to help them demonstrate that conceptual understanding. And then we all need success with the curriculum. We need to see our kids getting it and growing, and they need to feel that progress. Some considerations before making modifications, and I think these are really important. I think you've got to think first about what do you want kids to get out of the lesson or the unit, depending on what you're modifying. And I thought of kind of three sorts of things that I kind of categorize things in. You guys may have more. One is, with some kids, I want them to master the grade level objective. I expect them to go into class, and if I modify a little bit, they're going to grasp the whole concept. And then they'll be able to demonstrate that on an assessment, EOG, or at least show growth towards that. growth towards mastery, I might not expect them to modify or to demonstrate mastery of the whole thing, but I'm expecting them to make progress. And then I've got some kids where, mastery of grade level content is a big, big goal. And in the meantime, while we're working towards that, maybe over the next few years, I want to see that they're progressing towards their IEP goals. Can you guys think of any other kinds of outcomes that you might have for kids when you're giving them activities or assessments?
And I meant to say, if anybody has any questions, I'm watching the chat, so just drop your questions there.
Yep.
And I'll stop.
Because I can't see them.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess one other thing I could think of is maybe you want them to be able to work with their peers. So maybe you're modifying it so that they can, easily access so that they could share with their, with a group or something. I think you also want to look at student performance. Matroba and I were talking about the differences in some of the essentials classes. It seems like, at least at Alston Ridge, it seems like a lot of our essentials now have kindergarten, first grade math levels, where they used to have like fourth and fifth grade. They were coming in, to sixth and seventh and eighth grade. That's a big change. And I think the way you modify and the way you present things are different with those two groups. I think current understanding is important to think about, like, what do they already know? What do you want them to know? And then, of course, their IEP goals play a role in that. Are there any questions so far about kind of the purpose of modifying and then things we got to think about before we do that? All right.
Patricia, hold
Yeah,
on a second.
go ahead.
I just thought of something
Sure.
about when you modify, and also you, especially in the essentials classroom,
hmm
um you modify sometimes I modify to make sure to kind of help the students be successful a
Yeah.
little bit. You kind of put different level questions so they can at least try to be somewhat successful.
hmm
And that's about like the level ones, what we say here at level ones, level twos, and still incorporate those higher level questions, but try to have some questions where they can at least be successful in answering.
Yeah, absolutely. And even building that scaffolding in. So, like you're saying, kind of getting them to the point where they can access those higher things. That's great. All right. Um, in the in-class resource, I kind of think about those are the kids we're pushing into. They're getting a full dose of grade level curriculum. So to me, for the most part, mastery is the expectation. And if they have good access, they should be able to show some level of mastery. So when I think of modifying, I think of two kinds of things: modifying the format and modifying content. Format might be fewer problems. The key thing there is to make sure that if you've got an assessment assessing 4 standards, that all of those standards are represented in the reduced number of problems. This kind of touches into what Matroba was saying with the mixed difficulty. Intermingling problems a student can do with ones they may struggle with. It's actually a research-based strategy to help kids grow and learn in math. It just kind of helps them kind of maintain that confidence and then approach a challenge. Sometimes you might do more multiple choice than free response. I know the tests that are in Canvas or that open up from Open Up on the website. A lot of those are, free response. Sometimes our kids need an answer bank or some choices. And then also response frames. I know I do a lot of, especially with essentials. When we were doing ratios, I would put the ratio tables on there and let them fill them in, or even start to fill them in and then let them continue. So just some ideas there for modifying format. Matroba, can you think of any other things you do in ICR to kind of look at format modifications?
No, that's basically what I do.
Okay.
Because I try not to change the content too much
Hmm.
for in the ICR.
Yep.
But having the word bank, well, you know what? I guess that's accommodation, so never mind. I was talking about, you remember that read aloud we was
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
inserting, and I can't remember what you said. It was a good do you recall?
Vocaroo. Was it
That's
Vocaroo?
it. That's it. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
implementing and putting in like the test for them to be able to access. So yes,
Yeah. Um, and then the other piece is kind of modifying content, which again, like Matroba said, in ICR, I think you have to be really careful with. When students get to high school does not modify content um, at all. They are trying to maintain the integrity of the class. So as far as content wise, they don't make any changes. But you can modify content, especially as you're building capacity in kids by maybe removing some extra words or extra information, replacing some more difficult numbers with simpler numbers when you're looking at conceptual understanding, um, and maybe even prioritizing standards at first. Maybe what you expect mastery of as a sixth grader are fewer standards than what you would expect as they get into seventh and eighth grade. Um, I think you've
And
got to
really
really
think
go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
Okay. Really think about the core ideas that you want the students to take away from it, looking at the standards. Maybe you don't need 4 to 5 questions on that one particular standard. Maybe you need 2 or 3 or whatever is manageable for that student. So really reflect, or we like to say sometimes modifications that reflect the core content. So if your students are only able to access that at a lower level, perhaps a question that kind of reflects that standard, but a lower level question rather than a higher order question for it.
Yep. All of us have probably had to modify at one point or another. Maybe now's a good time if you have something that you've done that really worked well, allowed a kid to really show progress or show experience some success. Maybe drop that in the chat or unmute and share it with the team.
Every school is so different, so we'd really love to hear from you all about how you may have modified either in ICR or Essentials. I think that would be helpful for everybody to kind of hear different ideas too.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought. Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I just thought of a modification, and I just thought about, especially with you can especially if it's like a short answer
Mhm.
to help them. You can use the sentence stems to help them
Absolutely.
get to it. And I just thought about it, and I was like, ooh. And we was just working with short answers, and I was having a sentence stem to help them to get there, and then they finish it. That is that's a good.
I find
I think I'm gonna use that.
Mhm.
stems and sentence frames really helpful as well, especially for my students who have reading difficulties as well in math class. I try to, I suggest to the teachers to take out the problems with a lot of words because sometimes it does overwhelm
Mhm.
the student when doing assignments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else?
I have one.
Sure, go ahead.
I use one word problem and I just changed the numbers inside the word problem to
Mhm.
that one word problem. I give them the same one again and I just changed the numbers. So they do that same problem 3 times and they don't do any of the other word problems. They just do that one, but they get to do it with support, more independently, and then totally by themselves with different numbers.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I think too that goes along with that prioritizing standards, right? Maybe that problem represents the most important idea of the unit. That's a great way to do it. Any other input now, or should we move on? All right. So Essentials is a little different. And I've been doing this for 21 years, and I would not have always said this. But I think with the pandemic and then, I don't know, just kind of the changing nature of who our kids are, um, our Essentials populations, in my opinion, are a lot lower than they ever were before. Um, But we also have those kids that fit kind of the typical profile of Essentials, the one that the county put out in the protocols for how to kind of decide on classes. So I put this statement at the top, and I think, you really have to know your students. Matroba and I were talking about how our classes are kind of different in some ways. She may have more students that are at a higher level where they can really take some of the same assessments that they're taking in general ed, and they can approach the information and access it in a meaningful way without as many modifications. I have a lot of kids that if I give them 3 pennies and ask them how many more I need to make 10, they can't do that. So I think for me, some of my kids I expect to master or show good growth towards mastery of grade level standards. So I'm really working on providing them good access to it. And for others of my kids, I want them to have access and exposure to the curriculum. I want them to get some of that rich vocabulary and activities, but I also want them, we may be focused on an objective or two, or I may be really more focused on their IEP goals. Again, with the end goal in mind to build their mastery at grade level. So I think with Essentials, it's a little bit different than ICR. So looking at format, with Essentials, I really try to be clear and concise. Fewer things on the page, more direct information, less words if I can, just the important stuff. Answer bank, multiple choice format helps. I don't know about you all, but I find that a lot of my Essentials kids write a lot larger. They need more space. Maybe their thoughts aren't as organized, so they need bigger space underneath the problems if they're going to show their work on the page. I also find that breaking the problems apart into separate parts and then giving them credit there, and even sometimes grading as you go. So if they do the first part of a problem and they get the answer incorrectly, making a note of that, helping them correct it so they have the correct information to do the next part of the problem, is sometimes helpful for me. And then the other thing that I found is a rubric for alternative grading. A lot of times with my Essential students, I have to walk them through a lot of the problem to help them set it up and think about it. Kids that can go from there might get a full 3 points on the problem. Kids that require 1 or 2 more prompts but still get it correct might get 2 points towards the problem. So I've kind of played around this year, especially with some rubrics for grading things differently. So it's not all right or all wrong, but also so that the level of support is reflected in their grade. With content, more so than an ICR, I prioritize standards. DPI has actually put out for EOGs which standards more questions are pulled from. So, if you're behind in your pacing, if kids aren't grasping things, I always go check those documents to see, is this something that's a priority? Are they going to get 1 or 2 questions from this, or are they going to get 50% of their questions from this? That helps me kind of think about what's important and what's not. Providing picture representations. Whenever we can do that, our kids a lot of times have trouble visualizing. So I think the more we can support their understanding with pictures, the better. And then with Essentials, I really try to stick in the whole number realm if I'm addressing concepts versus computation. For example, 6th grade, we do rational number computation. Obviously for that, I'm going to use decimals and fractions. But for those conceptual kind of things like with ratios, it's just as easy to teach ratios with things costing $2 a can as if they cost $2.49 a can. So just some ideas there. Any things that you guys have found that work well for you?
I just
and your
want to
class?
add, I know you mentioned the changing landscape of Essentials. So we got to remember our sixth graders coming in were already behind when 2020 happened.
Yep.
And so then they had 2 years of almost, couple years of interrupted school, in and out, changes, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a part in the reason that we're seeing the skills so low at this point.
Yep.
So yeah, it's requiring a lot of patience. A lot of it.
Yeah,
April.
I have a real question. And please don't give me just the answer that you think that you should give. Please give me an honest answer. I have a math essentials class. My children don't know place value to the hundreds place,
Yep.
let alone hundredths
Mhm.
place, which is what the sixth grade standard is.
Mhm.
My children can't tell me that 91 is less than, well, 91 hundredths is less than 1. They can't tell me these things. And so, in all honesty, I want to work on this is the ones place, this is the tens place, this is the hundreds place. This is what you do, this is how you regroup. This is what you do, this is how you regroup. And all of this extra word problems and now this is only my second quarter here in Wake County.
Mhm.
But for me, you got all this stuff going on and they're not anywhere close to comprehending anything. Is that
Agreed. Yep. Yep.
to
I agree.
where I see that the need is?
So one of the things you kind of have to do is we want to give them access as close to that standard as we can. So if the sixth grade standard is the hundredths place, you may need to start all over again teaching place value, because we want to bring them as close to that as we can. We do want to expose them to the curriculum, but sometimes you might have to backwards map that standard a little bit in order to teach that what they are missing in the gap. And it is kind of like a balancing game to fill in, okay, I got to teach this and I'm going to teach this. And there were some people reviewing fractions when they were teaching ratios. So that's not an unusual thing. And I think we all see that in Essentials. So I think it's just really important to fill in the gap and not try to overload with the OUR too much, but we do want to expose them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree 100%.
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, I've had to focus on making 10. I would also provide them with resources where they can access that information, because at some point they have probably been taught place value.
Mhm.
So for a lot of our kids, I think retention and recall is a huge issue. So I think we did a section on interactive notebooks. I have a spiral, and before we start place value, we put a place value chart in there, have them get it out. Even having a reference point to look back on, I think is super important. And again, and if you don't know where to access it, I can show you, but accessing that DPI information about where are you going to get the most bang for your buck as far as on EOG or on output, or even moving into the next year, what's going to benefit them the most. And I think that's why when Joy and Tamar did the planning for Essentials, Unit 1 was skipped in, and Joy, jump in if I'm wrong, but like it's area in sixth grade. That's not a huge focus on kind of where the sixth grade curriculum is, right?
Area and data were the
Yeah.
least. We want to put our emphasis on what's on the EOG the most.
Yeah, and go back to all kids have played store at some point. So even those kids that are super low,
कुछ तो खाइए सीरियल खा लीजिए
even those kids that are
कितने बजे
super
जा रहे
low
हैं? 4:15 को जा रहे हो, मैं 5:15 को घर आ जाना।
can maybe access some of the information if you break down the numbers into one apple is $2, how much are 4 apples for ratios or something like that. Equations, again, use those whole numbers as much as possible. Most of them have done some of that. And then for complicated numbers, I also give them a calculator and teach them how to use that. How do you put a fraction in the calculator? It's not a complete answer, but it does give them some scaffolding and some support to be able to think about things conceptually while not having to worry about computation. Any other questions or comments about?
Maeda, did you have a question? I saw
sorry.
your hand raised a little bit ago.
I don't really have a question, but I do want to say that how I am modifying my curriculum or content with my Essentials kids. We are right now doing multiplication and division of fractions. What I normally do is when I start a unit, I do some vocabulary words. I put them on the board, the words that we usually or most often use during our lesson. For example, numerator, denominator, improper fraction, proper fraction. Those are the basic 4 words I felt is really important and would be used more often during the whole unit. So we did that, and as we and I think last time, I don't know if Matroba did that or somebody else who was presenting it, they shared their slide as to how they put those vocabulary words on a chart and hang it up there. So I took it from there. I started doing that, and we every day we go over our vocabulary words. That is one thing that I had implemented in my lesson plan, daily lesson plan. And then what the other thing I do is we are changing a proper fraction to an improper fraction. There are some steps that are involved in that. When compared to the ICR kids, they literally pick up as they go. But for my essential kids, they have to have practice every day as to how we are converting a proper fraction into an improper fraction. So I tell them, make a C, and I write that. First step is make a C. Then you multiply the bottom 2 numbers. So each step, I am putting it down on the paper for them to go back and see, do the problem. Go look at the board and do the problem. 1, 2, 3. That's how I really repeat it until they really get it. And I give them a separate paper to work their problems on it so that they see how they are doing or what pattern they are going in with. Those are the things that I'm trying to do in my lesson, daily lesson, and I'm finding it really difficult to get everything done with hands-on activity. I am not able to find hands-on activities for every concept that I'm trying to teach them. So it is most of the times it is like paper pencil or on the board, but we try to have everybody included in the lesson plan or during the lesson time.
Thank you. Those are all great things. I like the fact that you're using some kind of tips and tricks and maybe graphic organizers, like with that C, and teaching them the steps in addition to kind of bringing in that conceptual understanding. I do think for our, especially essentials kids, they sometimes need like a mnemonic device or something to be able to remember it in addition to getting the conceptual kind of thing. So I think that's super important.
Right. Well, I leave that on the board
Yeah.
until they write their test. Is that okay to do so that they have some kind of reference material to go back? And that's how I'm modifying their test. Not on the paper. I do pick up and leave some of the questions, but then I do leave my points or the steps to solve a problem on the whiteboard. So that, and I remind them, go to the board, look at the board, and do each step through your problem. That's how I am modifying their tests.
Yeah, and I think that some of that, I think it depends on your school, right? our school's big on common assessments, and they want everybody to take the test in the same way. So in ICR, the teachers try to really make sure that if they're going to allow, maybe they allow resources on quizzes, but not tests. Or they keep anchor charts up in the room, but they don't let them have maybe a note page. I think with Essentials, again, it really is, you really are trying to give them meaningful access. And for some kids, they're going to need resources in order to get that and in order to demonstrate what they know. I think it's just important that when you put grades in or when you kind of monitor progress, that you make notes about that.
Okay.
Yes, they got an 80, but they had access to, to
Mhm.
materials to reference during the test.
Okay.
And then you're being very clear
Mhm.
about what their level of mastery is,
Mhm.
so that people don't see, oh, they got a B in the class, but they got a level 1 on the EOG. It
Okay.
kind of makes sense then.
Okay. That
I
I'll
would like
remember to do. I haven't been doing that, to be very truthful. I wasn't putting any comments next to my grades, but going forward, I'll start doing that, because I started doing the mastery check thing with them after they take the test. If they are not reaching up to 60 or 70, then we were doing a mastery check. And then I did say that this is after they did their mastery check. So I was putting those comments against
Yeah.
their grades, but I wasn't putting comments like I have left the directions to solve a problem up there, or they took the visual or looked at the visual or had the visual kind of a thing in front of them while taking the test. I will start putting that too.
And I think it could be something general, like used resources to assist
Okay.
with memory or something. Doesn't have to be
Okay.
super detailed. Matroba?
Okay.
Well, I would like to elaborate on that. I leave mine up in my class because I think it has built my students' confidence in having it, and they use it as a resource. And then I see our students come in here and test anyway, so they utilize it. And in the beginning, the teachers allowed them to use their notes for their tests. Now, with going into the second semester, they are kind of winging them off a little. But when they come in, they was looking, even had the test today, they was looking. So they was looking. So they're used to the resources and they feel comfortable. And I feel if they are exposed to it and they're still using it, if they are able to look at their anchor chart and use it and understand it, that's practice. And that still give you practice up to the EOG, because you're seeing it all the time, you're using it, you're like, okay, it's okay.
Yep.
Because they're learning it, they're reading it, they're seeing it, and so by the time the EOG come, it should be stuck in their memory by then. I mean,
Yep, I agree. There's a lot of research too that having things on the wall, even when you take them off or cover them up for EOG, kids, if they've used them regularly, they can still look to a certain place and sometimes recall that information. So I think it's those are all good things to be doing. Any other questions about modifications, ICR, or Essentials? And we put some different examples here, Matroba and I did, of things that we've modified, maybe for the ICR setting, or maybe more for Essentials. So I'm not going to click on them now because I know Matroba's got some great stuff on supplementing with technology, and I want to make sure she has plenty of time. But you're always welcome to take a look at those, to reach out to us. I know we probably both have additional assessments we've modified in one way or another that I'd be happy to share. I'm sure Matroba would as well. All right. Matroba,
are you gonna still control the slides?
if you want me to. Do you want me
Okay.
to, or do you want to do it?
I can talk. Okay.
Up
All right.
to you.
Otherwise, I have to say, okay. So next component we're going to talk about is supplementing the what we need for the classes ICR. No, someone has a hand right. Was it? Oh, there's someone left.
Glenda, go
Yeah,
ahead.
someone raised a hand. Yes.
Oh, I was a mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, we gotcha.
Okay. Supplementing instruction in ICR Classroom and Essentials. Okay. OUR is the design curriculum for middle grade math in Wake County. So we all know that, and they are encouraging us to utilize it, especially in the essential class with special education students. And so implementing it into your lesson plans and utilizing it is very helpful.
Mhm.
And why we should use supplement materials is to actually to help. Is that my microphone on? Okay. To help engage students. And that's why I utilize a lot of supplement material to help encourage students, and so they can understand and to tap into the curriculum. Also to help them to understand the work that they are going to, the activities. It helps them to kind of bridge together to understand what is going on. Because sometimes we may, even in the OUR, it's not a lot of practice. So having that resource to be able to let them practice to help them understand what we are teaching is very helpful. And then supplementing also help us to with low risk opportunities to practice. Students need low risk opportunities to engage in the curriculum. And also it helps you to have the feedback, so you don't have to worry about grades. Progress monitoring, that's the big one. Special, a lot of people in my school, in my department, it was like progress monitoring. Since we are working, we need to progress monitor the IEP goals and the tools. By having supplements, we can actually work in trying to find out what the students need and also get that progress monitoring what we need to meet the IEP goals. So that is very helpful. Okay, so next we are talking about supplementing with technology. Technology is a big thing. We know our students are on it and it's engaging for students. So to help you to understand some of the supplements we have out here, I just put a slide together with different components. We have apps, and the apps are already, of course, some schools don't have access to already, but some do. Star Math, Dreambox. I think I wasn't thinking was Project. What is it? Prodigy. I think Project Prodigy is one for some schools. I know the lower levels of when the lower grades they use that. And some websites, some examples for some websites. Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a big thing around here at my school. If you link it, I think it's just mine, but you can just go to that link. If you have Khan Academy, you can click it, or it just come up to whoever it is. It may be mine. Let me see, or whoever's on logged in. And when you log in, it'll just bring your page up. So if you have an account with Khan Academy, it will bring yours up if you click that slide. If not, it'll show you how to actually create an account. Okay. The next one was, what's another, some more? And that'll show you. Okay, Patricia, go back to that so we can show people how that's different. They can pick out different areas where they would like to practice on. So if you need to supplement on a certain area, so right, ratios, could you slide down to the ratios if you can? Like for instance, ratios, you can just pick your own. You could be very specific and just pick the lesson that you want to have extra practice on. And this right here, and then it has videos that you can assign, and then also it's practice. So the students can have a resource to go through by looking at the videos and then going in and practicing. A lot of times the practice problems, I think it's about 4 or 5 practice problems they give them. But it's the good thing about Khan Academy, they give them a little feedback. If they get it incorrect, it will give them hints, give them opportunities to get it correct. But when they do get it correct, it just celebrates them. Instant feedback celebrates with a star. I just like that myself when I go in and work with it. All
And
right.
Khan Academy is aligned to the Common Core version of Open Up. So that's what I've got. If you go in and search Illustrative Math, which is the company that does it, you've got the grade levels. And most lessons have some sort of activity. Now, keep in mind, North Carolina's changed it a little bit, but for the most part, they're aligned. So you can get them some extra practice, or I even sometimes do these in my class together.
Yes. All right. And then also it has a if it has a report where you can actually, for individual students, and I use this for progress monitoring, especially to determine and then you can do a whole report on all the skills that you give your students, and you can do it individually, and it will have a grade, it will have everything that they worked on, the progress, with the percentage already calculated for you. So that's a good thing. That is very helpful. Okay. Also, Delta Math is more, I do use it in Essentials. However, when I use it in Essentials, I'm very careful. I basically I look for the I kind of modify that based on, I don't give them the real hard complex ones because I want them to be successful. And so what I'm trying to do is making sure they understand the concept that I'm working on. And also you can that's the page. You have to set it up and everything, but it's very nice, and it's actually that's aligned too. I do believe that's aligned with because it's very you can pick up every topic that you want to, and it's very nice, and it's free. It's free, guys. And this right here, this is my favorite of all. It's called Quizlet, and Quizlet is actually embedded into our OUR lessons. And this right here is a Quizlet link. This is a whole list of all the quizzes for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So you can, it's an easy access page. You can go to it, and this is where you can review those vocabulary words. And also you can give like a you can play a game in here, and the game is actually called Checkpoint. What I use, so if you click test, and then let's see if you can you get in?
Yeah, it's just gonna make me it's
Okay.
gonna make me push all the buttons.
It's okay. But I wanted to show this because a lot okay, at top is if you go to Checkpoint, you can actually customize your little Quizlet yourself. You can, what other words that you're working on, you can just click, and I think it give you only a certain amount of words. And I think it's about 12. It may be 12 or less. I can't remember. You can click it, and then once you get on, the students, and I love the music. The students have to log in. They can use the login, however they, you choose them to do so. But it's nice. But the only thing that I see is I have to figure out, because I haven't able to figure it out yet, is the timing. It's the time it is timed, and it goes pretty quickly. So I have to read the information or read the words for the students, because it does go pretty quick, and I haven't figured out how to adjust the time yet. Okay.
One of the language arts teachers I teach with uses this for vocabulary in her class, and she has the kids do it in teams, and they do like 3 rounds of the game, and so they switch teams each time. And that's kind of fun too. And that there's usually someone on the team that can be the reader. And so that might be an idea too, if you can't get around to read it to everybody, or if you want them to have like a little competition. Sometimes that's been fun.
Yeah, I normally project mine, and we just project it on the big screen, and they love it. For some reason, when I project all this on the big screen, it tends to work. Okay, and the next thing, the web-based games, of course, Kahoot. that is a favorite for students, and we utilize this other one, Quizzy. I hope I say it that correct. Quizzy. Um, we utilize that. A lot of the ICR teachers utilize that for the quizzes. So we have warm-up quizzes, and then whatever they exit tickets, we utilize that, and all this is graded. And that's what's a good thing, is graded. You can see what particular questions students are they have struggling with, and then you can go back and you can reteach the information you need to reteach, or you can um it's just it's so much easier to figure out the target areas that you need by supplementing and utilizing these, and the students buy into it. So that's the great thing. And then lastly, videos. Now we have videos in Khan Academy videos, but I want to ask Joy. I don't know if they have access, but I've had it. I've been teaching for a while too. I know they had videos. Wake County used to have academic videos, and I had access on them before. But those videos, if we could ever figure out how to get back to them, or if Joy, you know how to access them.
No, somebody left. Somebody had those and left the district, and that YouTube channel disappeared.
Oh no!
So they've linked in, into CMAP as many as they could. That a lot of illustrative math, but yeah, our in-house ones are gone away.
Gone. Okay.
But there's a lot of good ones on YouTube, like with Math Antics. And there's some other ones. I think the key is really to preview them first.
Yes.
Make sure they align with your teaching. And then a lot of times, clips are helpful. Vocabulary also has some, if you have access to that at your school, they've got some short little kind of catchy, especially procedural kinds of things, but that build in some vocabulary as well. So that might be an option as well.
Thank you. The next slide. All right. So when we are selecting supplementary materials, we need to think about what we really using it for. How is it going to actually help our students? What we're going to gain and just doing supplementing, but we need to think about how it's going to help students and what areas that needs to be addressed. Help to build missing skills. Especially like what I had today in class, a lot of the students we was working on, and I realized a lot of my students still struggle with, this is in ICR classes, they're struggling with dividing. And so on tomorrow, I had to think quickly. I said, you know what, I'm gonna have to really do some supplementary, and what we're gonna bring in these, I'm gonna utilize some of these websites and apps where I can help them to bridge that missing component. Because we're doing things at a higher level, but sometimes we have to go back and practice. And that's a good way to practice, is even though trying to go back and reteach everything, you won't always have time. So actually try to, when you're using your supplementing, you need to really try to figure out what your purpose is, so they can help build those missing skills, and also to look at how it determines what to reteach or to address. And that really supplementing helps me to figure out what I need to really focus on, especially with individual students. And I have in my class, a lot of time I make folders. Work folders are also a great tool to use, and especially when you're trying to supplement different materials in and to figure out what the students are needing, because everybody in my central class are not working real high level. I do have some lower level where I have to do the paper and pencil, and a lot of times some of them can't. Well, some at the beginning couldn't utilize the technology to access it. So you have, even though you're trying to use the technology, you have to think about it. Should I use paper and pencil, or should I use the technology? Also, this supplementing also helps the teacher have an ongoing method of monitoring skills. I put mine into the Google Classroom, and now it's going away. But I hate that. But you can easily put this information and house it in a certain place to help, so you can monitor your own materials, and it helps you to know how to progress based on student skills. And this is actually, that's kind of redundant what I already said, but and I also have specific questions or skills you need to address or reteach, and that's redundant too. I kind of start
Well, they're both
wording it a
super
different way,
important, so
but
you said them twice.
I said it twice, so I
That's right.
realized it. Okay, but we are actually, if anyone have any questions or any concerns or about how to do any supplementing, again, you can use paper and pencil still, based on your students. But I do know with the technology is very engaging. Students tend to buy into it, and you just have to monitor students on, especially on the computer. I have some that we have to just give paper and pencil to, because they just addicted to the technology. But if but we get creative. Some of the things that you use on the computer, you can actually print it out, and they can still have access to the same information. Okay,
Yep.
are there any questions or concerns? Any more questions, answers? Anybody want to have anything to share?
The other thing I noticed, Matroba, is that technology, a lot of the kids will try it even if they get it wrong, and
Mhm.
they'll initiate the task. So, like if I want to work with a small group in my essentials class or in ICR, and the rest of them are working on something that's kind of more self-directed through technology,
Mhm.
it gives me some time. I don't know if you've seen that as well. Just being able, kids will try it versus starting a piece of paper sometimes.
Yes, they
It
will.
takes them longer. So like if it's a quizzes, or my kids love Book It, um, and we talk about the difference between rushing and getting points versus getting them correct. But I mean, I think that's another thing. Any time that you can get with small groups with hands-on, um, you know, and still have other kids engaged is fantastic.
All right.
Any other questions for Tricia or Matroba or anyone else? We will meet again on March 2nd, but I just want to let everybody know next Thursday, February 9th, we have Julie Russo, who is a consultant that's kind of donated her time. She's the creator of Structures of Equality, and that is a comprehension tool used to solve word problems. I think that everybody would really enjoy it. I know some people came to the introductory one last time. It's appropriate for all grade levels, and it's really, really been shown to be a helpful tool for the student. And she's taking, she gave it a little introduction last time. Next time, she's going to take it up a level so that we can all implement it in our classrooms. And I think you'll find that valuable too if you can attend that. I think that'd be great. She'd also, I'm sure, enjoy seeing quite a big crowd from Wake County. So, any other questions or reflections or anything we can do for you this afternoon? All right. Well, I hope everybody found this helpful. You have our contact information, and theirs is. Thank you, Debbie. Theirs is in the slideshow as well. So thank you for spending time with us this afternoon on a rainy Thursday. And I hope you all have a great Friday and a great weekend.